Filmmakers and audiences have rediscovered horror as a fertile genre for exploring the ills of culture and the state of the human condition. And directors like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, and Robert Eggers have all been hailed for films that hold a mirror to the ugliest sides of us. But the films of Guillermo del Toro helped clear the way for mainstream prestige horror films. Utilizing unique visions of traditional monsters, Del Toro shows us not just the monsters under our beds or in our nightmares, but the ones who walk among us. In The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, the Spanish Civil War becomes supernatural when seen through the eyes of children. In Devil's Backbone, the spirit of a child haunting an orphanage isn't nearly as disturbing as the encroaching Frankist fascists, nor the caretaker who killed him in an attempt to profit from the war. When Carlos, the young orphan protagonist, learns from his friend Jaime that Jacinto, the caretaker, is responsible for the death of the child whose ghost now haunts them, the boys are forced to face the moral gravity of their situation, and to make a decision that will cost them their innocence. Whether or not to kill Jacinto in order to save the other children. In facing Jacinto's monstrosity, the boys must confront their own capacity for evil. In Pan's Labyrinth, Ophelia, while coping with the trauma of living in a war zone under a dictatorial pseudo-father, is approached by a faun, a mythical creature who tells her that she is the princess of the underworld.
Soy un fauno, vuestro más humilde súbdito arte.
And she must complete fantastical tasks in order to return to her throne. During one of these tasks, Ophelia attempts to steal an object from the chambers of the Pale Man, an ogre that eats children. The Pale Man, surrounded by iconography of the Holocaust, like the stack of children's shoes, symbolizes ultimate inhumanity. His monstrousness is that of total war, consuming innocents and civilians in its wake, casualties of war crimes and genocide. But as awful as the Pale Man is, Vidal, the fascist officer and Ophelia's stepfather, is that symbol of cruelty made literal. He uses his obsession with legacy to justify his sadistic actions, behaving with psychopathic intensity in the name of his goals. Not unlike Jacinto, whose greed pushes him to commit horrific acts, Vidal, in the name of his desire for immortality, commits brutal acts of cruelty and evil. Regardless of whether the Pale Man exists outside of Ophelia's mind, Vidal is the greater monster, driven as he is by choice rather than nature.
Lástima.
2015's Crimson Peak explores a different narrative territory while returning to ghosts as a device. In true ghost story fashion, however, the ghosts haunt not out of malevolence, but because of their unfinished business, and they enlist Edith's help in revealing their murderess.
I know who you are. Your name is Enola Shadi. Tell me what you want from me.
Lucille, Edith's sister-in-law. But Lucille murdered out of love. Love for Edith's husband. Love for her brother. Both familial and incestuous, forbidden and yet closer than any other lover could be. The most sympathetic of the Del Toro horror antagonists, she committed her crimes for love, but a forbidden love even by modern standards, and a taboo in nearly all cultures.
Do you love her?
This day had to come. We've been dead for years, Lucille.
You promised.
You and I in this rotting place.
Do you
Look
love
who we
her
are.
more than me?
Look at what we've become.
You promised you would not fall in love with anyone else.
Yes, but it happened.
At once human and alien, Lucille straddles the divide of forgiveness and condemnation. If Del Toro's earlier antagonists showed us that monsters wear human skin, then Crimson Peak showed us that even those monsters are capable of compassion. Despite Del Toro's usage of fantastical genre conventions, his films remain grounded in the reality of their human emotions. The capacity for dynamic emotion is both the virtue of his protagonists, but also what drives his antagonists to the darkest depths of horror imaginable. That, to Del Toro, is the scariest thing of all. Anyone can be pushed to those limits. Films like Us, Midsommar, and The Witch might eschew some of the more fantastical elements, but all hinge on pushing their characters to these limits. According to Del Toro, monsters exist in this world, but the worst of them are just like you and me. But just as the very worst are among us, so are the very best. Humanity, or the lack of it, is the greatest force the world will ever know.